In 2023, a massive cargo ship departed a Saudi port bound for China. The oil it carried was routine. How China paid for it was not. For the first time, Saudi Arabia initiated steps to accept the Chinese yuan. Since the early 1970s, buying and selling global oil with anything other than the United States dollar was a financial impossibility. The entire energy market ran on a single currency. China paying for Saudi crude in yuan signals the dismantling of a hidden economic engine, a mechanism that has quietly subsidized American prosperity for 50 years. The origin of this engine dates back to a 1974 agreement between Washington and the Saudi royal family, negotiated by the Nixon administration. The terms were simple. The U.S. guaranteed military protection and weapons for the House of Saud. In exchange, Saudi Arabia agreed to price all of its exports exclusively in U.S. dollars. But the Saudis were suddenly earning billions of dollars more than their domestic economy could absorb. They needed a safe place to park that wealth. This created a process known as petrodollar recycling. This flowchart maps the exact cycle that followed. First, Middle Eastern oil flows out to the rest of the world. Second, U.S. dollars flow back in to pay for that oil. Finally, those exporting nations take their massive dollar profits and recycle them by purchasing U.S. Treasury bonds. Because the Saudis only accepted dollars, every other country on Earth, Japan, Germany, India, had to acquire U.S. currency just to keep their lights on and their factories running. This guaranteed a permanent captive market for American debt. With the rest of the world forced to buy dollars and treasuries, the United States could run massive trade deficits, finance foreign wars, and keep interest rates low, all while avoiding the inflation that would normally ruin an economy living beyond its means. That neat arrangement held until a mathematical reality tore it apart. It started quietly in the oil fields of Texas and North Dakota. By combining horizontal drilling with hydraulic fracturing, American engineers unlocked vast reserves of oil and natural gas trapped in shale rock. Almost overnight, the U.S. became a net energy exporter. The core logic of the 1974 deal relied on American dependence on Middle Eastern crude. Today, the United States produces enough domestic energy that it no longer needs to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. This chart shows exactly how drastically the buyers have changed. As the line representing U.S. reliance on Middle Eastern imports drops towards zero, the line for Chinese oil demand climbs aggressively, now exceeding 15 million barrels a day. The diplomatic alliance between Washington and Riyadh requires mutual need. With the U.S. stepping back as a buyer, that shift erodes the partnership's strategic logic. The current system forces the world's largest importer, China, to convert its money into dollars to buy oil from a producer the United States largely ignores. That math is broken. The second fracture was geopolitical. When Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine in 2022, the West responded immediately. Washington and its allies launched a massive financial retaliation, freezing $300 billion of Russia's sovereign reserves overnight. The wealth Russia had earned from decades of energy sales, stored in Western banks, was suddenly inaccessible. This is financial weaponization. It proved to the world that holding your national wealth in U.S. dollars doesn't mean you own it. It means you have permission to use it, as long as your foreign policy aligns with Washington's. Finance ministries in Riyadh, leaders in New Delhi and Brasilia watched it happen. They realized that a dispute over regional security could result in their own central banks being locked out of their savings. By demonstrating its ability to hit a country's financial kill switch, the United States accelerated the global search for a safe harbor outside the dollar. Beijing recognized this vulnerability and began constructing a parallel financial infrastructure. They needed a system that offered safety to nations seeking independence from American banks. They started with CIPS, the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. It allows participating banks to clear and settle transactions directly in Chinese yuan, bypassing the Western-dominated SWIFT network entirely. Next, China opened the Shanghai International Energy Exchange. This established a formal, liquid marketplace where producers could trade oil futures using the yuan instead of dollars. This diagram compares the models. Left, the dollar system relies on SWIFT and U.S. treasuries. Right, The Petroyuan uses CIPS and the Shanghai Exchange. To address fears of capital controls, Beijing added gold convertibility. China has installed the hard financial architecture for a post-dollar world. The consequences of this plumbing coming online are direct and severe for the United States. De-dollarization is a zero-sum game. Every oil trade settled in yuan means one less trade settled in dollars, which translates to lower foreign demand for U.S. Treasury bonds. This bar chart visualizes the scale of the problem. The United States national debt is sitting at $35 trillion. Financing that pile relies on guaranteed foreign demand for American debt. If that demand dries up, the U.S. Treasury must offer higher interest rates to attract buyers. That drives up the cost of borrowing for the entire economy, risking a sovereign debt spiral and pushing the cost of consumer goods higher. Losing the petrodollar monopoly hits the American consumer while stripping the United States of its most effective non-military weapon, the power to enforce global sanctions. The dollar is not collapsing tomorrow. It still accounts for nearly 58% of global foreign exchange reserves. Global capital has deep roots. What we are watching is the birth of a multipolar currency order. The world is reverting to the fragmented, regional financial blocks that dominated the globe before World War II. For 50 years, global trade enjoyed the frictionless predictability of a single, unified financial system. That era is closing. The future will require navigating multiple currencies, competing exchanges, and deeply divided financial networks. This leaves a massive structural question. When the next major financial crisis hits a divided globe, and the Federal Reserve is no longer the sole firefighter of the world economy, who absorbs the shock?